Have you ever been at a drill meet and seen a team in reg or color guard and they're really locked in? Like, they are very good. They're snapping, popping, they're extremely intense. But as you're watching them, you're like, wait a second, I don't think they are doing anything in accordance with the manual under which they reported. And then you fast forward to the awards ceremony and they're the ones picking up all the trophies in those events anyway. Well, let's talk about what's happening here and let's talk about our way forward. So there are really two things that are coming together and converging to make competitive junior ROTC drill team what it is. One is obviously actual military drill and ceremonies, right? What do the manuals say? What do people actually do in real life when it comes to DNC? And then the other part of it is the history of our activity, which we can't really ignore either. So let's talk about that one first, and then let's talk about how to bring these two things back into balance. So as drill teams were getting very good, and this is in the 90s, right? Many of the coaches of those top programs were the senior instructors at their units. And as competition became more and more cutthroat, they started to realize that there are certain ways you can do movements that are actually going to be received better and viewed as sharper or more intense by the judges. And so you started to see things like slamming all the equipment down on the ground so there's a loud pop of audio because it sounds impressive, or slapping your foot down when you pivot because you can prove how strong and in time the team is, or things like doing open ranks. It is certainly sharper to wait until everyone's halted and throw our arms up in unison than it is to put our arms up individually as squads and elements as we complete the movement as prescribed. And so as competition ramps up, these teams have started to realize, man, even if the judges know drill, they don't know what's expected in this high school sport, and therefore they're still rewarding the snap and the pop and the hard work that clearly went into it. And we can kind of get away with bending the rules and doing this quote unquote competition drill. We can drill to win rather than doing drill by the book. And this obviously trickles out from these schools into their local areas, and we kind of get this idea that the reason we're doing regulation and color guard is to win competitions judged by people who, though they know what is expected of real drill, maybe don't know what it's supposed to be like at junior ROTC. And on the flip side of this, we have what the manuals actually tell us, right? The military heritage of our activity. And obviously the procedures prescribed in varying degrees of clarity can, I bet there's ways that you can figure out to modify them to do them in a more intense or more sharp fashion. But I think when these two things fall out of balance, we're really in trouble. Because it should be, when your team marches out onto the floor in competition, it's as though the manual pages were opened and out floats your team. And the way in which you are doing the movements, the procedures you're executing, are exactly as prescribed to the most high or most authentic or most faithful representation of what's written that you can possibly get. And at the same time, if we were to take it to that extreme, it's probably not authentic to do our standing manual with as much physicality and as much intensity as we're doing it. It's probably not authentic to have as much specificity in our march step as we can have. But I want us to remember this. In junior ROTC drill team, drill is not necessarily a means to an end. Drill is the end unto itself. It is the craft at which we are working to become great. And so I think that the best balance to be had, right? Because if we go all the way to the extreme on either side, we're in trouble, right? If we're not going to do what the manual says, and we're just going to make up our own drill, guys, we already have exhibition for that, right? What's the point? Let's just all go home a little bit earlier and let's worry a little bit less if that's what it's going to be. And on the other side, if we're going to get comments like, oh, it's too robotic, or that those drill teams are too sharp, then what are we working so hard for? But when we do the procedures prescribed by the manual in a good faith attempt to bring to life the spirit and the words and the intent of those manuals, and then we do it in a way that has extreme attention to detail and extreme specificity and extreme physicality, such that only junior ROTC drill teams can achieve, because we're only focused on the drill element, right? When we put those two things together and we bring them into focus, I think that we have something totally unique and completely awesome on our hands, which is that junior ROTC drill teams can become the standard bearers for what the manuals prescribe to do, and they can show us how good it's possible to be. And that means that you, if you're listening to this and you're a cadet, right? You can be amongst the best in the world at something as a high school student, and that is not something that can be said of very many things. If you're playing sports, you are not going to be the best at your sport in high school. If you are a musician, you are not going to be the best musician in the world as a high school student, right? But we, as junior ROTC drill teams, can become the best at doing drill because it's what we focus on and it's what we're able to practice, right? So I think if these fall to balance, we're in trouble. I think if we bring them back into focus, that we have something amazing on our hands. But I want you to think about that as you head off to practice and you head off to competitions. And I want us to think, what would happen if every team in competition was making a good faith attempt to bring to life the word, spirit, and intent of their manual and was doing it to the highest level of excellence possible? How awesome would our activity